building techniques, materials, and styles to recreate this place. Because when you travel throughout Israel, you got to see so many places and pictures like this, just dead stones with dusty ruins. But today in the village, everything comes alive. So you're gonna see houses, synagogue, also people dressed with first century costumes. Feel free to make pictures with them. And we believe as you experience the tour, it will transform your understanding of the Bible. And this is the area we're going to explore. We're located about 10 minutes walk from this place to the center of first century Nazareth, which is the Church of the Annunciation today. And 2,000 years ago, that was farmland. We know that people grew grapes here because the first thing archaeologists discovered here was a first century wine press. And close to the wine press, the terraces were found because we're in the hilly area of the Lower Galilee. So that was the main type of agriculture here. As you can see, these terraces, they consist of two main layers. At the bottom, there's a white chalky layer, which was used as a sealant. So since one terrace is filled with rainwaters, the water would flow down to the next ones and thus creates a self-irrigation system. In addition, archaeologists have found here quarry, water channels, and watchtowers. We're going to talk about all this. So now as we go outside, please let's stick together. Let's stay as one group. We know that these trees, that they're really tough, tenacious. They are resistant to drought and fire. They can produce their food in scarcity. That's why an olive tree has become a symbol of hope, wealth, and longevity, because they really could live for hundreds of years. For example, this is the oldest tree that we have here. It is more than 400 years old. But I would like to point out to you these new branches, new shoots, which are coming out of the roots of this tree. A new shoot, we say in Hebrew, netzer. Netzer. Can you say it with me?
Netzer.
Netzer. So if you added one more letter, you would get a Hebrew name of Nazareth, which is Natseret. Natseret. So such Netzer is mentioned in the book of Isaiah, chapter 11, where the prophet says, a new shoot comes out of the root of Jesse. We remember that Jesse is the father of King David, who is the forefather of Messiah. So this prophetic picture was fulfilled in Jesus' life when Matthew said that Jesus was called Nazarene. Yeah, he was that Netzer himself, out of the root of Jesse, and as truly Messiah, he lived in Nazareth. And right behind you over there, you can see this is a field of wheat, which is harvested in June. And we know that 2,000 years ago, people used to call a field of ripe wheat as Sadeh Lavan. Sadeh Lavan in Hebrew means a white field. So now it explains why Jesus once said, look at the fields because they're white for the harvest. Now, Nazareth was founded about 2,200 years ago in such hilly area, and at that time the major means of transportation was a donkey. A donkey has a very unique possibility to find the easiest way. When he goes up and down the hills, he makes kind of zigzags, and eventually on top of those paths made by donkey, the first streets of ancient Nazareth were built, and people would build the streets just wide enough to enable a loaded donkey to walk through. That's why we may easily call a donkey a first century engineer, right? And also in this part of our property, we have almond trees. An almond tree is mentioned in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 1, where the Lord says, look, what do you see? The prophet answers, an almond tree. And then God continues, I'm the Lord who is watching over his word to perform it. So if you wonder like what's the connection between an almond tree and that fact that God is faithful to his promises, so everything makes sense and becomes clear. When you just look at the original text of the Bible, you can see that almond in Hebrew is shaked, and to watch is shakad. So this is actually the same word. So we've got here kind of a pun. And Hebrew speaking prophet understood what God meant, because he was actually saying, look at shaked, because I shakad, I'm faithful, I'm watching over my word to perform. The whole village of Nazareth, they would gather here to celebrate the harvest and to make wine together. And some people, they would bring clusters of grapes to this area, and then they would take off their sandals and would walk for to press it. Now the question is, why did they make the wine barefoot without any sandals? I always say the wine in this case would be much more delicious. Yeah, it would refine the flavor. But the truth is that the seeds inside are bitter. So if the seeds are crushed, it would ruin the taste of the wine. That's why, folks, our bare feet are perfect tools for making wine, because they're just soft enough to squeeze the juice out of grapes without crushing the seeds inside. After that, the juice would flow down through this little channel, as you can see it over here, into this vat below. And after sifting it through linen cloths, the juice would be placed into new wineskins. After 40 days of fermentation, it becomes a new wine. And we remember how Jesus taught about this importance of putting a new wine into new wineskins. Why? Because during the process of fermentation, a lot of gases are released, and new wineskins, they're flexible enough to expand and to make room for all these gases, and the old ones, of course, are not. And this wine press is the original one. That was the first thing archaeologists discovered here in the end of 90s. And the pottery shards found here, they date back to early Roman period, 1st century. And when we look at this hillside, we find all these terraces, which are original as well, except for this watchtower, which is replica. But beyond that wall, in that direction, archaeologists have found 3 original watchtowers. So when we look at this hillside, it reminds us the description from Mark chapter 12. There is a parable of Jesus where he says, one man planted a vineyard. He put a wall around it. He dug a wine press and built a tower. You see how all these parts of the vineyard are mentioned there? And just to remind you that we are very close to the center, the 1st century in Nazareth, just 10 minutes walk from this place there. And this is actually the only 1st century wine press discovered in the surroundings of ancient Nazareth. So it is likely that Jesus was here. Maybe as a child he may have played here, or it is also possible that Jesus was actually imagining this very place when he told that parable from Mark chapter 12, because we can see how Jesus always used illustrations from everyday life, maybe from his own experience, in order to illustrate the spiritual truth for his listeners in the best way he could. And this is really kind of miracle that this specific piece of land had been preserved unbuilt throughout history. As you can see, the rest of the city is already built, and especially for the last 170 years, it was possible to preserve this land thanks to one Christian non-profit organization from Scotland. They purchased this land in the middle of 19th century. Their main goal was to do a medical mission. That's why they built this hospital that you see at the top of this hill, and the village is a part of this organization, which was opened for the public in 2000. Please, folks, take a look, and then I'm waiting for you over here. Watch your step again, and
you want to buy carpet somewhere else? Yeah, you guys call the carpet guys. Yeah, I tried.
Have worms in it.
Worms?
Worms from.
Hello. I'm Simon. Hey, Simon. I'm the farmer. And I'm 2,000 years old. You believe it?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, as you see here on this terrace, we plant winter vegetables, which need lots of water and cold weather. I guess next month we will harvest everything here. And then we will plant summer vegetables, which need warm weather and lots of water, like melon, watermelon, and cucumbers. But for the moment here we have cabbages, we have lettuce, parsley, kind of wheat for salad. There we have garlic, and there we have onion. Today I'm going to harvest the onion and the garlic and prepare the place for the summer vegetable. But this is not the most important thing I want to tell you. I want to tell you about the month that we prune the tree and how we prune the trees. Usually we start pruning the trees here in February, a month before the tree return back to life, which means during the winter time and the cold weather, most of the trees here losing the leaves, and then they just stand without any leaf, just branches, empty branches. But in March, the trees start to return back to life, which means start to make leaves, branches, flowering. That's why we use 1 month before and then we prune it. As you see on the olive tree, we don't have any high branch at all. Just low branches and empty from inside. Why is that? High branch usually make lots of shade on the other side of the tree. On the good side of the tree, where is the olive going to be? And olive loves so much sun. Olive don't like shade at all. And we know that less branches, we will have bigger olives. Bigger olives, which mean much more oil. And for our safety, imagine that we have another 1 or 2 meters high branches, then we need to climb on the tree, and that's very dangerous. That's why we save all those problems when we prune the tree. Also, we prune the fig tree. Do you see the highest tree there with the big leaves? This is the fig tree. Here on the right side with the red flowers, this is the pomegranate. And beside it on the left side, we have the apples. And above of you here, we have the grapevine. Now, on the grapevine, we take out most of the branches. We leave just few branches, healthy one, but so short, like that. This short branch have few eyes. Those eyes with the time gonna be a very long branch. This long branch will make also new branches. Those new branches will give us the grapes, which mean mid of next month, you're gonna see all those trellises completely covered by leaves and by branches. It's very beautiful to come here in the summertime when it's too hot, sit in the shade and watching all the grapes falling down. So pretty. This trellis here, all of it is red grapes, and all the others on the next side we have green and yellow grapes. Usually we harvested the grapes and the fig in August. So my friends, come back in August. Enjoy your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simon.
Bye bye.
Need to know the best place to buy carpet or flooring? I heard it through the grapevine. You should call the Carpet Guys, 855 my guys, or visit carpetguys.com. Commercial break.
You may have noticed that our villagers here, they plant only those plants which are mentioned in the Bible. For example, a fig tree, as you can see it over here. A fig tree is the first mention of a fig tree is Genesis chapter 3, when Adam and Eve, they made coverings by using its big leaves. And also we can see that a fig tree is also viewed as a season indicator, because it's characterized by totally different look during each season. Jesus refers to a fig tree as a sign of the times when he says in Matthew chapter 24, he says we should learn the parable of fig tree when its branches become tender and put out their leaves. So it's the sign that the summer is near. And summer in Hebrew is kites, and kites means the end, so the end of times. Also, as we're gonna go uphill in about 5 minutes, and we're gonna find over there such small green bushes, and this sorry. So this plant is from the same plant family along with thyme and oregano. That's why it smells the same, and we call it za'atar in Hebrew. If you try to check the translation in the internet, so the most common you're gonna get is a hyssop. Hyssop. So some scholars say that this is a biblical hyssop, which is mentioned in the story of Exodus. Remember when God brought the people of Israel out of Egypt, so he commanded them to use the branches of hyssop as a paintbrush to paint their doorposts, yeah, with the blood of a lamb. And also we can see that hyssop is also mentioned in the context of purification, for example, for cleansing from leprosy, or if a person got in contact with a dead body. So hyssop is needed, and it explains why King David in his Psalm 51, after he had sinned with Bathsheba, he prays to the Lord and says, Lord, please purify me with hyssop. And also our villagers here, they plant only those plants which were common during Roman period 2,000 years ago here, like cabbages. So that's why I don't expect to find here any potatoes, tomatoes here. There was no pizza in the time of Jesus. Also we can see that all these terraces in the end of the 90s, they were discovered as ruined, and it took us a long time to recover them. But just imagine to build such terraces from the scratch. It would take really long time, because you have to carve these huge steps into the rock, then to build such retaining walls, and to fill the space in between with the two types of soil. And terrace lands were very expensive in biblical days. And in one of our parables of Jesus, we read there was one man, he was giving a banquet. When he started inviting different people to come, so one of them gave very strange excuse when he answered, I've just bought a field and I must go see it. So it sounds so unlogical and strange, because when you buy such expensive lands as terraces, the first thing you should do is to examine the condition of these terraces, and then you make decision to buy it or not. So that was clearly an insulting excuse. And this road we're using now for going uphill was the best approach to all these terraces. And since they were very expensive, not all the terraces that you see on this slope belong to one family. So this road was kind of common property. It belonged to nobody, and all the sowers, they would use the same road to sow their seeds. And in the parable of the sower, we read how some seeds, they fell on the road. So this is the very type of road which is meant in the parable. And as you can see, since the ground is compressed by people walking on it all the time, that's why Jesus says that birds will come and eat all of them. Another type of soil is rocky soil in the parable, and the meaning is, as you can see it over here, very thin layer of soil with the bedrock itself very close to the surface. That's why Jesus says everything will sprout up very quickly, but when the sun starts scorching toward the end of springtime in this area, everything is gonna wither because it doesn't have deep roots. So folks, now you can see that people in the first century, they went to a gym, natural workout every day, and we've just made this stop to catch up our breath, but we keep going uphill.
So what I appreciated about the soils parable is, if you noticed, you've gone through multiple of the terraces and you see the different plants growing near each other. So one of the things that was really big for me when I think about the parable of soils, like in America, we think of like large plots of land, right? You think when you're driving through Ohio, all you see is this huge plot of land. You're like, oh, so it's a path. What you're seeing here is they're much more almost like within a step of each other. And the interesting thing about, if you want to create that terrace where they had that amazing food being grown, it requires work to be done to not be on the path, to not be in very little rocky areas. You have to remove those things. It's this constant tending. So it's this one thought of good soil always requires some tending to it. Good soil doesn't just arrive and become there. It requires something that creates that good soil, that heart posture, if you will. So it's always something interesting here. Like, you could literally be at four corners and go, look, there's some planting there, there's rocky, there's path, and then there's good soil. All right here, and with the potential of thorns coming in. Like, you can see it in just one small spot. So I think sometimes we think too big of farmland because of what we grow up in, but seen in a first century context, it's this small plot right here. And all of it's possible right there. So just something to think about with that parable.
Wait, yeah, we're going in. Here we can see two main stages of olive oil producing process in biblical days. The season of picking olives starts in October and lasts till the beginning of December. Before picking the olives, people would wait for the first rain to fall because it washes all the dust of the branches. And then they would spread big sheets down the trees, and just by hand, by pulling each branch, they would pick the olives. Then all the picked olives would be brought to this stone basin. A donkey is hitched to such beam, and a donkey would walk around many times like this. And by this millstone, all olives are going to be crushed. And by the way, such millstone is mentioned by Jesus when he says, "Whoever offends yet tries to tempt my little ones, it's better to hang such millstone on his neck and to cast him into the sea." So as a donkey walks around many times, everything turns into such olive mash. It's not a mud. So it is altogether olives, of course, seeds, oil, and water. It is very oily, but we haven't got any oil yet. That's why people would place this olive mash at the sides of the special round baskets, like this. So these baskets only allow water and oil out while the pulp, the mash, stays in. And once people got about 10 baskets like this, let's come over that part of the building. And so that was the first stage of olive oil producing process, which is crushing the olives. And the second stage is pressing these baskets. So actually you can see the same from both sides. As you can see here in the corner, people would place all these baskets with olive mash. It's one upon another, and it's over a hole which is a half-meter deep. And without any pressure applied, water with oil would flow down to that hole. And after a while, since the water is heavier, it would go down, and the oil just floats at the top, and people would scoop it out later on. So that was the first olive oil. According to the law of Moses, it is considered to be the first fruits. And so it is to be offered to God. That's why we believe that in Jesus' time, the most of this oil went to Jerusalem to light the menorah, the 7-branch candelabra in the temple, and also to anoint kings, priests, and prophets with the best quality of olive oil. Then people would lower this huge beam, which is a key part of this whole mechanism, in order to apply pressure on these baskets. The more pressure applied would cause the quality of oil to decrease. So people would get the second olive oil. It was good for cooking, medicine, cosmetics, and perfume. And after that, people would use such winches that you see along this beam. It's kind of leverages we've got here. So people would try to lift these huge rocks that you see in the pit. And again, the pressure is applied. And people would get the third olive oil. It was of the lowest quality, but it still was good for lighting such oil lamps. Try to repeat after me, which are gat, shmanim. Gat in Hebrew is press, and shmanim is oils in plural. Gat shmanim is olive press, and this is actually the same word for Gethsemane. Yeah, Gethsemane, the Garden of Gethsemane is Gat shmanim in Hebrew, and the meaning is olive press. So we remember that Jesus prayed before the betrayal of Judah and the crucifixion. Jesus prayed in the place called the Garden of Gethsemane, and here we've got very interesting image, how Jesus was crushed and pressed in the Garden of Gethsemane, like the olives in an olive press. He was under such a great pressure, spiritual, psychological, and so physical, yes. So Luke says that even his sweat was like drops of blood, and also we can see that people used to produce 3 types of olive oil 2,000 years ago, and we see that Jesus prays in the Garden of Gethsemane 3 times. So remember, Gat Shmanim is Gethsemane, and the meaning is olive press.
You're the one that drives. That'd be incredible.
Daniel, our potter. So he's gonna talk about all the stages how a potter was produced in biblical days.
So tell me when, brother.
When?
That's it.
When? Okay. So, gentlemen. There are no ladies, right? Only gentlemen. Oh, that's good. So, gentlemen, how are you doing? Everything okay?
Yes.
Well, I'm Daniel and I'm the potter of the village, as my brother said. And yes, I like to play with mud. Do you like to play with mud?
Yes.
That's good. So, a potter back in the days was really essential. Why? Do you like to eat?
Yes.
It doesn't sound like it.
Yes.
Do you like to eat?
Yes.
So, we need to eat in plates. We cannot eat on the floor, right? We cannot eat on the table. We need plates, we need jars, we need cups, we need those things. So it was really helpful and essential to have a potter in each village, to help the family around it. But to be a potter and to start doing vessels, we need first clay, right? How do we make clay? Anyone knows?
Mud and water.
Mud and water, right. So, this process will happen behind you. Behind you there's a fence. Do you see the fence? Down the fence there are 2 pools. Very big pools. You can go and see if you would like to. They are not swimming pools. Don't be confused. A little bit too small. But they are for mixing the clay. I will mix the clay with a very special machine that all of us have. The machine is called feet. Okay? I will step on the soil and the water and mix it very well. So a little bit of leg exercise if you like leg exercise. So I have to clean stones and leaves and branches also out of the soil because they can damage the condition of the clay. Later when the vessels are gonna go into the kiln, they will break, they will crack in the heat if they have stones in them. So it's very important to take those things off. After a little bit of exercise, leg exercise in the sun, the clay will be ready and I will put it inside to keep its condition. Then bring a piece over here to the potting station and start shaping. The potting station has 2 wheels, the one that you can see and a bottom one. It's not magic, those are my legs. So more leg exercise. If you like leg exercise, this is the profession for you. Okay?
You don't look like them anymore.
So I will shape the vessel until I'm satisfied. And when I'm satisfied, I will put it inside to dry in the shade. Very important, because out in the sun, anyone knows what happens if you dry too fast.
Cracks.
Right, like this one. And my dad will punish me really hard, okay? Last time I had to clean the donkey barn. It was awful. You can imagine. If you
We
did
only
sometime,
want pot,
you
no
can
crack.
imagine. So, they will dry inside, in the shade. And while they're dry, I can make additions, like handles, or holes, or decoration. For example, this part I'm adding right now, this one is a little bit dry. I made it like two hours ago, an hour ago. So, the part for the wick is added later. For example, in the oil lamp. Then they will go to the final stage, baking. There's a dome, there's a kiln over here. Can you find it? Anyone can find it? Yes, behind you. Do you see behind you? That's the kiln. They will bake in there in a very high temperature, and at the end will come out like those over there in the corner. Those are ready, we can use them, and they can sustain liquid and even sell it. So, as you see, gentlemen, this process can be hard. It can take about 40 days overall. Very long. We need patience. But this process shows us a beautiful thing about God. How? Well, as you can see, the potter uses water, applies pressure on the clay, take it through the fire, and sometimes our life can be like that, hard. We can have hardships with our families, with our relationships, with our kids, in our jobs, but God is good to us and He takes care about our life. He's a good potter. So, although we can have hard times and sometimes it can hurt, if we trust Him, we are in good hands and the end result will be always a good one, like those vessels over there in the hands of the potter. From this place we can learn about a verse in Isaiah 64 that tells us, God, you are our Father and we are the clay. You are the potter. We are all the creations of your hands. Amen?
Amen.
So yeah, that's basically it. And remember always, if you'll give your beloved ones or your wives a hug like that, it might cause trouble. So don't do it. Okay? That's everything, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
That's everything, gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you so much, Daniel. And also in Genesis, when we read when God